things in a funky pronunciations if they don't know. So um, the topic I chose was responsibility because we've mentioned it a few times in this group, and I know sometimes for some of us it can be a difficult topic, like it feels like something that's out of our control or not in our realm. So I was wondering if you want to start, if you have any thoughts first, you can just dive in and tell us what comes up for you when we talk about responsibility, and I'd love to then chat with you about it. So off you go.
So thank you for taking responsibility for the timing of my birth because you said she's about to give birth. I got so excited. I didn't know that. I wish. Anyways, so yeah, it's a topic that we love talking about, me and you, because it's funny. I feel like the world talks about it one way, and then the people who are able to kind of access a different level of consciousness when we can talk about it a different way.
Mm, yeah.
And it's such a privilege to be able to talk about responsibility without it being about blame.
Mm,
And to me, the opposite of that is, and it sounds paradoxical at first, is to talk about responsibility with curiosity and openness. And as I'm saying these words, feel the feeling, if possible, that can come with these words.
mm,
You know, blame can feel very harsh and hard and horrible and more, right? But all in that realm, right? It's like down on the layer, on the, as Hannah always talks about, the elevator of consciousness. It's somewhere down there. But when we talk about responsibility with, again, with openness and curiosity and interest, and sometimes, I don't know what the word for it is when you don't, you're just like, huh. And if there's an actual descriptive word that describes that.
yeah, what is that? Ah.
And I'll tell you more about what I mean by that, like as we get into this conversation. But um, I did want to start off by just reading something very short. I'm cutting out half of it, Hannah, but there's this really nice front cover that I have. This is the Viktor Frankl book on the meaning of life. And I stole it from my sister-in-law. And I still have it. And she, he towards the end of the book, he has this little title called The Meaning of Life. And he jumps straight in. He says, we can't really answer that in a general term, right? Imagine you would ask a chess player, what's the best move? Well, it depends. It depends on where you're up to in the game. It depends who you're playing with. I don't know. I'm not a chess player, but I can imagine that does not make sense as a question because it changes per person. It changes as you show up to life at different parts and points in your life. And even your very, like, you know, your capabilities change over time, and it's not always an upwards. Sometimes it's up and down and left and right. So he said a better question to ask, and I just love this. A better question to ask is, hang on. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. And therefore, what he's talking about in this book, which I haven't read about, is logotherapy, whatever it is, sees in responsibleness the very essence of human existence.
Wow.
It's, I just love that. Why are you saying wow?
Well, it sounds very grown up. You know, and I always used to joke about when I'm a grown up, you know. I want to be a woman of grace and dignity when I'm a grown up. Um, and and I, you know, having spent many, many years coaching people, I've found that often, and I include myself in this, that we can say we want to change and we can say we want to get better, but there's sometimes a reluctance to kind of grow up and take responsibility because it's kind of easier to, sit back and either, um, I know I was in my victim story for a very long time, or we can rely on the attention it gets us, or the things it gets us out of. And I think one of the things that I think that kind of my resistance to taking responsibility was if I show up, then maybe something will be asked of me that I'm not capable of. So it's kind of easier to stay over here where I know how to do miserable. I know how to do, blame and resentment, because I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know how to do that. So it's almost like sometimes we get really good at being in the mess and we're not so, it's scary to kind of show up. So that's something we came up with.
It's really funny though, because what you said just takes me right back to the spiritual, because you don't know that you will or won't be able to do it.
Right.
So it takes you right back into, well, if I'm willing to even consider it, then what really I'm saying is I'm willing to take myself into unknown territory
Mhm.
and then I'll see. So it's like I'm willing to walk up the steps to the high diving board and then I'll see if I want to jump off. Because I think when we project too far into the future, we create a scenario where we will have to jump off the diving board, and we know that that won't be good for us, and we automatically leave the curiosity, we leave the understanding that we are expandable creatures by nature. Ooh, it's coming, Hannah.
Feel
I
it.
told Hannah, I told Hannah I'm going to shame her. No, so Hannah is she has one phobia
Tell you what.
that I know of, and it's called tech phobia. But luckily, she has a very annoying friend who just gets excited by tech and marketing and anything that puts the two together. So yeah, I've been on at Hannah for a while, but that she is not thrilled to join in those conversations. And what was really interesting, and how it really, I don't know if I told you this part of the story, Hannah, is that a couple of weeks ago, I don't know what changed, but Hannah had some sort of insight that said, I think I can do this, however much it looks like a three-headed dragon. I still think I can face the dragon. And at literally the same time, somebody who I don't know as well, but has joined an initiative that I've been producing, had the exact same thought. I hate tech, but if you'll help me, I'm willing to try and set something up, right? Now, the difference was that as much as Hannah was not enjoying it, and, you know, I've met enough people like this in my life. Like, I was always the one as a teenager who was going around to my grandmother to fix her TV and to work out how to do the new recordings and whatever it was. But she was also a tech lover, let me just say. It's in my genes, it's in my blood. But my mother is the exact opposite. So I am used to this kind of thing. But this other woman who knows me less, and so theoretically would feel more responsible to do her side of the story, like seeing that I'm helping her, who's almost a stranger. We made a time for me to help her. She so had her eyes, like hand in front of her eyes like this, that her husband had to set up, literally just subscribe her to the tech system, like literally just, put in an email address and subscribe, but that's all he did, right? And now she thinks she's done. And so instead of showing up we were in different countries, so we were Zooming or WhatsApping, whatever it was, at the time that we set aside to do it together. She's not at a computer, she's in her car. So how are we going to do this? We've set up a time to work out your tech, and you haven't showed up because you're in your car. And it just really struck me that, such small and simple things, and I'm not blaming her. I understand what when something looks real to you and tech looks scary, like you'll do anything you can to evade it. But it was just so interesting to me that when Hannah had this feeling about, I think I can do this, and she took the steps up the diving board, and she kept jumping in, and she didn't enjoy jumping in, but she did it anyway because she could see that she could do it. And she kept doing it over and over and over again. And I'm curious, now that you did that, how do you experience the diving board?
Well, I can remember when you came over, you were sitting here next to me, and a part of me just really wanted to say, forget it. Just forget it. I was half out of my seat. Right? Like, I love you. Thanks for trying. It's not worth it. Let's just give up. And I could feel it was like an old behavior of blame the computer, blame my, inability, blame something so I can be out of here. Because I don't like this feeling right now. And I thought about it afterwards, and I thought the feeling was very much about, I felt stupid and I felt incompetent, and I don't like that feeling, but I saw, it was amazing. In that moment, I saw that was just, it was what I was feeling in that few seconds, but I didn't have to let it stop me from continuing. It wasn't as big a deal as in the past it used to be. And it was like, I could feel this monster growing, and I thought, and just hung in there, and it passed, and we got it done, So I love what you were saying earlier. I think the curiosity thing is really important, because I've had, as I'm sure you have, many conversations with people where you get them, help them to get motivated, help them to get, even curious about going towards the diving board. And he's like, okay, so let me know how it goes. And then the next time you check in with them, it's like, it didn't happen. The diving board, wasn't even there. It kind of it disappeared. You're like, what happened? And I think that's where the responsibility part comes in. And I loved how you said that you can actually go to the edge. You can go have a look. You can because if I think in my head, I have to do everything today, I have to do, fix everything now, it's all on me, which is impossible, then no wonder we give up and we don't want to try. But if you can take it in just going up to the water's edge, just having a look, I can take responsibility for that. I can do that. And then when you get there and you see that it's okay and it's safe, I sat in that uncomfortable feeling and I was like, actually, I can sit in this, it's okay. And the moment I was okay with it, it kind of just melted. And then you do the next part and the next part. And I've seen that my bandwidth for this kind of stuff, as you noticed today, it's pretty small, whereas I have endless bandwidth for other things. So I've just come to accept that's the way I am. And I think one of the things we talk a lot about in this group is about not judging ourselves for these things. And when you don't judge yourself for it, it just makes it so much easier, because judging yourself is like putting another layer of, difficultness, if that's English, on top, that is almost like sabotage. So, well, then you can't blame me for giving up.
Okay, so here's where, this is the interesting bit. So it's like, there's so many different aspects where curiosity comes in, because you're talking about being curious enough to see if I can do this. And then, to me, there's another curiosity that's kind of like more of a meta curiosity, meaning I'm not even talking about when you're in the situation, I'm talking about when you're thinking about the situation, right? Or you're just considering the situation and you're just like in a very abstract way sometimes, right? And it plays completely into what you're saying about the judgment, because you didn't decide right now to be ready. Like, a bunch of things happened, and for some reason, something sparked inside you that said, okay, like, I'll remove my hands like a little bit, and I'll take a peek,
Yeah.
right? And then you had a nice friend who said, right, give me those hands, get them away, right? Oh, so nice to have the roles reversed for once. Anyway, but but because Hannah's usually telling me to behave, but it's so curious that we don't get to pick when we can show up. Now, we can do our best and we can try and we can maybe sometimes and maybe sometimes not open our minds to more possibilities than we currently see. Like Hannah said, I have let's say this much bandwidth, and my head said automatically currently, right? Because I'm just so open to tech not being a big deal. But you know, let's say Hannah loves opera. I can't stand it. My bandwidth for opera is this small, right? And my husband was so kind. He like put something on for me the other day. He said, "I'll give you a taste of it." I had to wait a few hours till I was ready, but but I don't care. Like, it doesn't make a difference to my life, although it would make my husband and Hannah happy, maybe. But here actually it could make a difference to Hannah's life, and even more importantly to other people, not to Hannah so much, to the people that Hannah could potentially help. Ironically, as she does that. But this is to me the key. Staying away from blame, because when you think responsibility is about blame and self-blame and self-recrimination and beating yourself up and saying, I'm no good and why wasn't I able to do this and all that, ironically, you take yourself away from being able to take responsibility, because automatically you take yourself away from a good feeling, your bandwidth is not going to expand. It's only going to contract. And so, to me, it just speaks to the fact that human beings are big. We're able to hold space for so much. We're able to hold space for the fact that I'm capable of more, but I don't know how much more. And I can be curious in every moment to be open to seeing more, but also to be open to the fact that right now might not be the time to see more. And within that, that's how we maintain our kind of like state of equilibrium. And that's ironically how we're able to expand in other moments. If I could add one more thing, which it came to me like as we started this conversation, it's just a very descriptive piece, because I had this vision once, and it was kind of like the opposite. So the reason I'm saying this is because I feel like there's sometimes a counterfeit type of responsibility, which means sometimes we kind of step on someone else into someone else's lane, and we think we can take responsibility for them. Ironically, we could be showing up terribly in our own lives sometimes and think that we can do it for someone else. Or not, we could do them really well. And if we are relational beings. So if you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're a sibling, if you're a child of someone, if you're a coworker, if you're anyone, right? Automatically, you're going to sometimes be driving side by side next to someone else as you go through life. And I once had this experience with my very, very first client. When, before I would even have called her a client. And she had actually stayed in my house after I gave birth to one of my babies, and I wanted someone to stay at my house and, in return for some help. And every night she would go on the couch and cry. And she was actually in the middle of trying out a separation from her husband. She'd been together with him for a number of years, and just it was weird. Like, they sounded like they had a really good relationship, except when they didn't. and and I started talking to her about the principles, and I saw her changing in front of my eyes, and it was unbelievable. Okay, she went back to him. She told me the most amazing things, and then she would get into thought storms. And I said to her, why don't we carry on our conversations? This is so new to you. Why do you feel like, oh, you've heard everything now, you're done? No, no, she gave me this excuse, she gave me that excuse. I don't want to talk on the phone. I'd only come live. You live too far away. I lived half an hour bus ride away from her, 20-minute bus ride, like pretty local in the same town. And she couldn't be bothered. And instead, she would call me at 11:30 at night every time she got into a very violent mood, put it that way. And I tried a number of times to help her. And one day I thought to myself, this is not helping. You can't fix, you can't, like, sort out a fire once there's a fire. You want to try and prevent fires from happening. And I said to her straight out, I said, listen, I love you very much and I want to help you, but this isn't helping. It looks like I'm helping you, but I'm not helping you. So if you want me to help you, this is how we can do it. She never took me up on the offer. And I hung up the phone, and I had this sensation of wanting, very physical, real sensation of wanting to go into her life and grab hold of her steering wheel and just nudge it back into the center. Like, I know what you need, just do that. And straight away, I caught the illusion, because I could never go and sit in her driving seat and do that, because I'm not in her. And therefore that must mean she's the only one who can do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what gave me the security at that point to realize, if I ever want to help someone, it's always, always going to be about them seeing that they are behind their own steering wheel.
That's an amazing insight, to be able to, I don't know, because for many years as a coach, I was a micromanager, managing kind of coach, where I would get in there and, give minutiae bits of advice on how to do things and call me back and then do this and do that. And the three principles, it's amazing how it gives you the bandwidth expands to see that getting in there and doing it for them, A, is not possible, and B, is actually a disservice. So you actually, and whether she takes you up on the offer, or not, is out of our hands. But giving someone the opportunity to see that, I think is huge. So just before we open it up for everybody else, I was wondering if you had any thoughts about how, because you said about, like, once the fire, we want to prevent the fires. And that's to me a lot of what I see the principles is so practical and useful in my life. It's like more of a prevention these days than a fix it. Because if getting into the thought storm and getting, like, she was getting it late at night into that, big mess, and then asking for help. It's, what can we say about responsibility that helps us to not get into that place? Like, not go there.
Not go where?
Into the thought storm, into the mess that we're now trying to fix and, struggle out of.
Okay, so I do want to acknowledge, like, it's funny, like, just as we started, different times of life will give you different experiences. So for example, in pregnancy, right? Like, I think I said this to you, like, there are times where I feel like I've literally backtracked 10 years. Times. But not, 9 months of it. And I'm so grateful, because I remember a different pregnancy 10 years ago. I'm just realizing because he's 10. Where there were times where my thought storms would get so bad that my husband wouldn't leave me in the afternoon. I remember he would come in for lunch and he wouldn't leave me in the afternoon until he felt I was stabilized, because I'd gone off somewhere in my head and everything was terrible. Nothing was happening, right? Just everything was terrible and everything was, and he didn't feel safe leaving the kids with me. The two tiny kids that I had at that point. Well, that hasn't happened anymore because I think I'm a lot more aware and a lot more honest. And I think that that plays very much into responsibility, meaning there's lots of types of awareness, right? But I think the awareness I'm talking about right now is I'm aware when my mood's going down. I'm aware that I'm completely irrational. I can't always stop it because it feels so strong at the moment. Sometimes. It's like I'm so blessing the sometimes. But at least I know, and at least I can even say, at least I can take myself to my room so my kids don't have to witness an irrational banshee of a mum. Like a couple of weeks ago, well, my husband had to hear about smashing a cup. Poor thing. Smashing a cup. I mean, that's all he did. But he didn't care about me, but he didn't. It was a fragile cup. Why was it in the sink? Right? That's what I mean by curiosity. I could see, and my level of stoppableness, just to add to the expanded dictionary here, was almost zero. But it wasn't zero. It was almost zero. And at least, let's say, this awareness and honesty had me knowing I was irrational, had me knowing what not to do to make it worse, and had me knowing how to actually explain to my husband in the moment what I needed from him.
Wow. Yeah.
Which was completely irrational. And he had to know and I had to know, which, I'm just right. I'm just right. It's okay until this blows over. I'm just right. And it's so curious. It's like I can laugh about it now. I can see the human fragility in it, the lack of capability, but also where I've expanded and why there's nothing to be embarrassed of. And I'm so grateful, even though it was such a horrible, silly, awful situation. I'm just so grateful for being able to absorb it all in that way. Because I really, really, really think our experiences are tailor-made.
Wow. Yeah, that is such a great example because sometimes we find ourselves in situations that are, uncomfortable or bumpy, as I call them, like where there's someone, like hormonal, like you're describing, or someone could be detoxing, or, with deadlines at work or all kinds of situations where we might find ourselves stretched to our limit. But I keep going back to something that Aaron Turner said in that video that he did with Michael Imus, where he said, sometimes I ruminate, but I know I'm doing it now. And I think that's to me another part of responsibility is, yeah, we can still get caught up and I can still maybe overthink and I can still have a tantrum, but I know I'm doing it now. And I might have to do it for a few minutes and then it's over. And then
Yeah.
it's back, and again, not to judge ourselves for it and not to, like, I would drown in it, I would take it to the end point and drown in it before, but now I'm like, okay, dip my toe in, I'm done. Let's get on with it, so yeah, wow. Okay, so I'm gonna open it up now and let's see, everybody.